It's taken people 15 years to embrace that they're going to be now a legitimate car company. But when I underwrote the investment, my bet was on something bigger. And I think that Elon is well past building a car company. And I think it'll take another 5 or 10 years for people to figure out what this next arc of innovation is. And what that is the deregulation of energy. That is what Tesla is powering. That is what allows it to be a multi-trillion-dollar company.
I want to understand, Chamath, how you decide what to invest in. Do you believe, and this is a subject that's come up on your podcast, your All In podcast, do you believe in fundamentals? Or as has been argued, a stock can trade wherever, regardless of whether it is or isn't hinged, to the fundamentals of the underlying business?
Well, maybe I can just give you an insight into how I process any opportunity.
Sure.
Random company comes in to the top of the funnel. Immediately, I'm making a very quick, hopefully it's a decision, but maybe sometimes it's a judgment. And I'm asking myself, does this fit into my worldview or not? Meaning, is it in my circle of competence? And I have a very simple way of looking at this. Is it going to fix something in inequality that I think is important, or is it going to fix something in climate change that I think is important? Those are the only two things I care about. Inequality and climate change. Under inequality, there's a bunch of stuff. Financial equality is important. Healthcare equality is important. Education equality is important. So it allows me to organize a lot of different opportunities. And I'm trying to figure out, is there a consumer proposition here that's important for them? Does it make something more symmetric? Does it take something that was asymmetric and fix it? So that's my first judgment, which is qualitative. That's why whenever I start my one-pagers, it's always, what is the strategy? And you can read all of these one-pagers now. And what you'll get away from them is the first lens is equality and or climate change. Then I start to do the fundamental work. And this is where I have a real issue with a lot of people who say that they're value investors. I think that I'm a value investor. The thing is that when you look up the word value in the dictionary, it doesn't mean cheap. It doesn't mean a cigar butt with 2 puffs left, that famous Buffett Munger quote. I think it actually means something that has value. And so then I'm really thinking about, what are the cash flows of this business? How does it create a moat, right? Meaning in software, some technological way that's hard for people to compete with it. And then can I get it for a price where there's a margin of safety, where if they misexecute for a quarter or if they have a little hiccup, it's going to be okay. Because, we've got an entry point where 5 or 10 years from now, this thing will be 5 to 10 times bigger. And that's how we think about all these things. And if you look at the deals that I've done, they kind of map pretty singularly one-to-one to that framework.
So let's use a real world example. Obviously, this is not the kind of deal you're doing, but if you looked at Tesla today through that lens, is that stock a buy with a market cap north of $800 billion?
The short answer is yes. The reason is that I think look, I bought Tesla in 2014 or 15. I was one of the largest owners of the convertible debt. I felt that was the best margin of safety way to bet on Tesla. It's turned out to be an enormous winner. And I really believe in what Elon is doing. I think he's the most important entrepreneur of our lifetime right now. If you look under the hood, utilities spend tens of billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars a year all around the world on CapEx. They are completely regulated. They feel completely safe. They feel like they can issue debt ad nauseum. They can cause all kinds of damage to the environment or otherwise, look at PG&E and still come away unscathed because they're protected. Except that something is happening that nobody forecasted, which is the complete bottoms-up disruption of energy. And that's the only way that this thing is going to get deregulated. It's not going to be by law or dictate. It's not going to be, a big monolithic competitor. It's going to be because every home installs hydro panels, solar panels, batteries, and then software that basically allows them to live off the grid. And then eventually pump their excess energy into battery solutions and other things that are controlled by cities and towns and governments, who then in turn will turn off their usage of peakers at a minimum. And then over time, will have very different characteristics of usage from traditional utilities. That is what Tesla is powering. That is what allows it to be a multi-trillion-dollar company.
Chamath, you have acquired a powerful and influential voice, increasingly so, on Wall Street.
But just the stench of this whole thing just goes to show you, back to where we were talking about before, about how difficult it is for normal, everyday folks to have access to any kind of return. So if you know, sort of we break down the capitalist philosophy, they are just fundamentally stuck in this cul-de-sac of always being labor and always being sort of at the, ownership of capital, of the ownership class. And the fact that normal folks can't get access to returns and, close the inequality gap is just going to make all of the things we're dealing with today a lot worse than they already are. In terms of short selling, I buy the fact that it's an important part of the market. I'm not a huge fan of it. I do think that certain folks really use it to run a neutral strategy. And, I think that that's great. But I also think that, now in the world of social media, and we've seen this recently, disinformation can be used to not just cause political damage, but I think disinformation can also cause economic damage. And so I think that the SEC is going to have to deal with that issue and figure that out. How do we manage information or interpretation or sensationalizing of things that all of a sudden can whipsaw the markets up and down? And these actors, how are they regulated? Are they allowed to just say whatever they want and the implications are what they are? Or is there a higher standard now that there's so much distribution for so many more people?
That is a calm, sober, and thoughtful analysis. It wasn't a few weeks ago. What changed?
Well, look, as with everything, I really do take pride in the fact that I have strong opinions, but they're weakly held. I think it's important to have a point of view. But also sometimes I'm emotional, and those conclusions are more judgments.